Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Engage in Trade, Translation and Localization Best Practices. I'm Susan Spitz. I'm the manager of international business here, international business development here at the World Trade Center of St. Louis. Thanks for joining us today. Language and translation are one of the most important things that you should consider when you're doing business internationally. While English is the accepted language of business worldwide, nevertheless, if your customer has to struggle at all to understand your marketing messages, chances are they're going to disengage, especially in competitive industries. So we're excited to bring you this content because our speaker today is well known throughout the St. Louis community, especially in German circles. And she has actually been, I love this, I didn't realize this, but she's been doing professional translation work since she was a teenager. So we're excited to bring her knowledge and her insights to all of you today. A few housekeeping rules. All participants will be muted for the duration of the presentation. However, if you wish to ask questions, please do so using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screens. We'll do our best to get to those at the end of the formal discussion. We will leave some time for Q&A at the end. And the slides and a recording of this presentation will be available a few days after this webinar is completed, in addition to an evaluation that we hope you will complete. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce the Deputy Director of the World Trade Center, St. Louis, and my boss, Stella Sheehan. Stella has been with the World Trade Center for over 18 years, and she leads the trade team consisting of myself and Annie Mbale, our webmaster today. She also heads up our Chancellor's Certificate in International Trade, which is an online export training program. She oversees our 16 sister cities and is the executive producer of our signature event, which is coming up soon, Growing Global, our luncheon in September. Born and raised in Ireland, Stella has lived, worked, and studied extensively in international markets, including Belgium, France, Italy, and the UK. She holds a BA in French and Italian from the National University of Ireland, Galway, and a master's in applied languages for business from the University of Ulster at Coleraine in Northern Ireland. She's also a graduate of St. Louis and was appointed to the Missouri District Export Council in January of last year. And as I always say, she's the wind beneath the wings of our executive director, Tim Nowak, who is also with us today not on the panel, he's as a participant. Stella is now going to give us a brief overview of World Trade Center's work and introduce our speaker. Over to you, Stella.
Thank you so much, Susan, for that gracious introduction. And thanks to all of you for joining us for what I have no doubt will be an informative and entertaining topic today with a terrific speaker. As Susan mentioned, I lead the trade side of the house, and we like to say here at the World Trade Center that we have three main pillars: people, trade, and investment, the three key equal ingredients which go towards making up a global city. The people side consists of our 16 sister cities and perhaps our most well-known initiative, the St. Louis Mosaic Project, which is led by my colleague Betsy Cohn. And that's an initiative to attract foreign-born to the region and assist them by way of programming and networking once they get here. The trade side then provides companies with the tools they need to trade internationally by way of counseling, referrals to our federal and state partners with whom we work very closely, and organizing educational events like the one you're attending today. Last but certainly not least, our foreign direct investment, or FDI pillar, as we call it here internally, led by my colleague Sean Mullins, assists companies around the globe who may be interested in setting up their North American base in St. Louis, while simultaneously assisting foreign companies who've already chosen St. Louis and wish to expand and continue to invest here in the region. And now I am delighted to introduce our speaker today. Suzanne Evans, as Susan mentioned, began her professional translation career as a teenager at the age of 16 in her native Germany by placing an ad in her local newspaper offering English and German translation services. She went on to earn a BA in International Business and Languages from the Foreign Language Institute at Ulm, Germany. In addition to German and English, Suzanne speaks Italian, Spanish, French, and Russian, and used her language skills working for Hewlett-Packard in Germany, and upon moving to St. Louis, working for Deutsche Financial Services here. She founded AAA Translation in 1994. The company provides translation, localization, and inspiring content solutions serving clients worldwide in over 300 languages. Since 2006, Suzanne has been the president of St. Louis Stuttgart Sister Cities Committee, where she does a fantastic job, I have to say. She also serves on the board of the World Trade Center, St. Louis, the Titan 100, the St. Louis Forum, German American Heritage Society, and is a member of the Multicultural Committee at Explore St. Louis. Suzanne has received numerous business and civic awards, too numerous to mention, throughout her years at the helm of AAA Translation. So over to you, Suzanne.
Well, thank you very much, Stella. And ciao, bonjour, guten tag, hola, hello, and thank you so much for joining this webinar. A big thank you goes to my colleagues and friends at the World Trade Center for inviting me to talk about my favorite subject matter. This webinar will cover important translation and localization strategies, and also the cultural aspects of global business and best practices for growing global. Hint, hint, growing global coming up. First of all, let's start with the history of translation. Translation was believed to be born somewhere in the region of Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and Egypt, 8,000 to 2000 BC, with a poem called the Epic of Gilgamesh, originally written in Sumerian and translated into a variety of Asian languages. There's another accepted hypothesis that the Rosetta Stone, and an ancient Egyptian stone inscribed with a decree issued at Memphis in 196 BC, was the first piece of translation. These theories contradict each other, but we can confirm that the first translations as we know it now happened more than 2,000 years ago. And it has evolved over time, becoming translation as we know it now. A fun fact for you, the most translated book in history is considered the Bible, followed very closely by the Quran. Fast forward now from handwritten translations to the invention of the printing press, typewriters, word processors, I remember those, to computers. The global translation market reached $56 billion in 2021. More statistics. The translation market in the United States has been growing at a steady rate of 7% over the past 10 years. A large-scale behavioral study by CSA Research in 2014 showed that 75% of consumers are more likely to buy products from a website in their native language. 87 of B2C.
Suzanne, I just wanted to know if you want to start your slides or if you're going to work up to them.
Oh, they are on. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm not seeing it. You need to share your screen.
I am so sorry.
No worries. I love these slides graphics. I want to make sure everybody sees them. There we go.
There, I'm sorry.
Yep. Let's see.
Anyway,
It's still, let me make sure it's on slide presentation. Yeah, there you go.
okay, this was the first slide. Here's the second slide. There we go. My apologies.
No worries.
Anyway, 87% of B2C consumers said they would not buy from an English-only website, also CSA research. 40% of internet users said they will never buy from websites that are not in their native language. And 65% of non-native English speakers prefer content in their native tongue, even though they're highly proficient in English. As you see under the slide on the language statistics, 7139 languages in the world, 42% of them are endangered. Usually less than 1,000 speakers speak those or less. Of course, English is the most spoken language in the world. And Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, has the most native speakers. English, Chinese, and Spanish are the most widely used languages on the internet. And the best English speakers, Netherlands, Denmark, and Finland. So how can you prepare for a localization strategy that suits your specific budget and needs? There are several important questions that you should ask yourself when starting language translation of any of your content. Here are some to get you started. What business goals do you want to achieve by localizing your content? What is your timeline for this project? What languages do you need to translate into? Is one language enough? Or do you need a few more languages to translate and reach the markets that you want to reach? Do you have internal resources to extract any necessary content? What content should be translated first for the highest possible impact and ROI? Do you need to rebuild an existing website, product, or video and software to import the translations? Are you prepared to offer local language support for customers in different markets? What is your budget? It's always a restriction, is the budget. Are you ready to support local payment methods and currencies? Do you need additional legal advice to move ahead? With that in mind, how do you identify key markets and languages for translations? Learn about local consumer preference. Consumer preference and behaviors change across many markets, especially international markets. So you may need to make several changes to suit the local market. Review your products, messaging, branding, and marketing strategy to understand whether they'll align with consumer and cultural preferences in your new market. McDonald's, for example, changes its menu to suit different regional preferences and adapt to cultural norms. Its Indian menu, for example, contains no beef items, as cows are considered sacred in Hindu culture. Additionally, 39% of Indians are vegetarians, so McDonald's has many more vegetarian options on its menu than you'll find in US restaurants. McDonald's, as some of you already know, also offers alcohol in various countries. Even the French fries taste different in Germany than they do here. So when learning about local preferences, it's best to do your research before entering a new market. Another important aspect is to review your business and product names. You want your brand and product names to be easy to remember and pronounce in your new market. Otherwise, it will be hard to establish brand recognition and benefit from word-of-mouth recommendations. Additionally, you want to be confident that your brand or product names don't accidentally mean anything inappropriate or offensive when translated, localized. Consider slang and dialects as well as translations. For example, Enterprise, and I had to pull up these exotic cars. We were asked by Enterprise to do research in 44 countries if the name Enterprise is offensive in any way. So make sure that your wonderful American company name or branding or whatever is created for local markets in mind, not to offend anyone. Then you want to localize marketing campaigns and activities. Adapting your brand's visual and written elements is just the first part of bringing an international brand into a regional market. The second part is considering how you communicate your brand, particularly through your marketing campaigns and customer-facing communication. Your marketing message needs to be tailored to local interests and cultural preferences to keep conversion rates high and help your target audience connect with your brand. For example, second-hand car marketplace Heycar operates in the UK and multiple European countries. A recent blog article on Heycar's UK site reimagines FA Cup football teams as cars, focusing on a historic British football competition. But Heycar's Spanish site features an article about Leo Messi's supercar, putting the spotlight on a celebrity sports person who played for almost 20 years for the Spanish football club FC Barcelona. Both articles are sports related, but they tie into unique cultural preferences and common national interests of the respective markets. To adapt your marketing campaigns and activities, start by reviewing your existing campaigns, the design, and the messaging. Make sure you consider the following: your visuals. Are you showing people who are representative of your audience? Are you being sensitive to cultural norms, such as women wearing head coverings in Muslim countries? Remember that puns and idioms that work in your home market may not make sense in other languages. Americans use a lot of baseball and American football references, but the top sports in the rest of the world is football, soccer, cricket, hockey, and tennis. Therefore, you want to make sure you adapt your marketing campaign to the appropriate country. What about your marketing channels? Are there channels more common than in your home market? WhatsApp, for example, is very popular in South America, but it's less frequently used as a marketing channel in the US or in Europe. What about cultural nuances and sensitivities? Whether it's a product video, marketing documentation, HR documentation, operating instructions, bilingual employee trainings, conference or legal interpreting, translating and interpreting text accurately is crucial for reaching your global audience effectively. I watch a lot of movies that are dubbed, that are subtitles, and my mind is always going, especially when it's German to English movies. And sometimes the translators uses a different word than you would use here in the American market. So it's very important that the proper translator, subtitler, works on the document that knows the native language in and out. And every language carries a unique set of values, traditions, beliefs, and nuances that shape the way its speakers perceive the world. Hence, translating content from one language to another is not merely about substituting words. It's about conveying meaning in a way that resonates with the target audience on a cultural level. One of the most critical aspects of cultural translation is understanding the context. What may be perfectly acceptable in one culture could offend or alienate or be misunderstood by another culture. Take, for example, the concept of humor. Jokes and puns that elicit laughter in one culture may fall flat or worse, cause offense in another one. I remember when I first moved here from Germany, I had a slew of jokes that I was telling my friends in Germany, and I came here and I kind of started explaining or translating these jokes, and my friends here just looked at me like, we don't understand it. So be very careful with jokes and cultural taboos. Cultural sensitivity is another crucial aspect of translation. It involves respecting and honoring the target audience's cultural norms, values, and sensitivities. What about cultures, colors across cultures? If you want to catch your customer's eye, you will rely on attractive design in most cases. But when it comes to design, colors are essential to making your product look more aesthetically pleasing. Studies have shown that a product's color has a significant influence on the customers. When customers see a product for the first time, they need less than 90 seconds to make a judgment. In addition, color is the first feature of your brand's logo that a customer will notice. Even more critical is that colors can increase customers' positive response to a brand up to 80%. Think about that, 80%. Blue North America, Europe, the blue color symbolizes authority, peace, security. Red, for example, in Russia and most communistic republics, red associates with communism of the Soviet Union. Asian cultures, red is the color of prosperity.
Hey,
While
Suzanne, can I jump in again? Because you have a slide that you sent us that shows all those colors. Do you have that on your deck?
oh, I sent you a new presentation.
Yeah, it's a nice
I
slide.
replaced that one.
Okay. Well, we will be including that when we send it out to everybody. It shows all the different colors with
Yeah.
brands and things
Yeah.
like that. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that was a really nice slide, except there was a typo. And the green color in Islam, green is the color of wealth and fertility. So I'm not going to go on about the colors if you have the big slide. But then here it comes to, okay, so you're ready to translate. And we receive these calls a lot. Translate this document into French. Simple, right? Very simple. The first question back is, so which version of French do you need? This is where it gets more interesting. We have North American French, we have European French, we have North African French, and if you take a deep dive, there are even other versions of French that are spoken in this world. So which version will make more sense? Because these different languages have different rules when it comes to grammar, spelling, sentence construction, of course, vocabulary, and so on. Same goes for Spanish. Spanish is spoken in many different countries. Another important aspect during translation that text may increase or decrease. For example, text expansion happens when the content in the target language takes up more space than in the source language, so the original language. For some languages, the difference is just a few words more to make the same statement, but for others, it could be up to 50 to 60% longer than the source text. This has a direct effect on your design of the documents, the brochures, the website. So understanding the differences when it comes to languages and the size limitations will help you bring your products and services global. A great number of European languages, such as German, Dutch, or Finnish, contain large compound words to replace a series of smaller words. For example, the German term, are you ready? Kraftfahrzeughaftpflichtversicherung means motor vehicle indemnity insurance in English. Much less space for this word in your translation. In contrast, text contraction happens when the translations take less space than the original text. For example, the text length shrinks when translating from Vietnamese or Thai to English. Knowing all these aspects, again, will help you decide which languages to go into. So let's dive into websites, why they should be localized, and the advantages of multilingual search engine optimization. So here you see on the slide the most spoken languages on the internet and in real life. So English, of course, leads the way. Mandarin, Hindi, Spanish, French, Arabic, Bengali, and Portuguese. And then most used languages online share of websites using language. So the languages on the right-hand side, English, Spanish, German, Japanese, Russian, French, Portuguese, Italian, and others are used mostly on the internet. So here is a good roadmap where you would like to start with translating your website, what languages you want to start into. And what we usually advise our clients, if you're just starting out with localization and translation, start with Spanish and French first, and then take it from there. Those are the easiest ones. They're the closest to the United States, and a good way to start going into the global market. As mentioned earlier, CSA research found that 76% of online shoppers prefer purchasing in their native language, and 40% won't buy from websites in other languages at all. So to showcase your website, it is your brand's commitment to your target markets, boosting your global presence, of course. and you're different from the competition. Some of your competition may not be in the global market yet, and right there is a way to differentiate yourself from your competition. Shopify reports that a 13% increase in conversions for their localized websites. And you have enhanced visitor experience once you have a foreign language website. So now you have localized your website, but how will prospective global customers find you? Through search engine optimization. Here are some tips. Of course, translating is the first step to gaining visibility on search engines. But beware, you should never just translate keywords. Why? Just as languages differ from country to country, end users also search for similar products and services online in very different ways. Even in countries that share the same primary language, end users look for similar products much differently. They use dedicated URLs. Your URL is the first part of your website that users see, and it's also where you should start when doing localization, SEO, search engine optimization. Each of your language or country pages needs to have its own URL so that Google or any other search engine can effectively crawl, index, and rank your site. Make sure to include a language indicator in your URLs to help search engines identify the website language. For example, an example page might be www.mywebsite.com, while the French version is www.mywebsite.com/FR for France. And always stick to one language per page. Search engines use the visible content of your page to determine its language. So you need to make the language obvious by sticking to one language for content and navigation. Also translate the hidden parts of your website. SEO incorporates both the content that users see and the content they don't, and both are equally important. When creating multilingual websites, it's easy to forget about your website's hidden parts. This refers to the text that works in the background and the pages that users only see when they perform a certain action. For example, metadata descriptions, meta tag titles, URLs, alt text for images, checkout pages, contact pages, newsletter sign-up forms, and error messages. And use location-based keywords. Keywords are not universal. It's best to use specific keywords research for each language and region your website is targeting, because simply translating your keywords won't be good enough and will not bring you many results. Different English-speaking countries use different words for certain things. For example, in the United States, they use the word cookies to search for cookies, while they search for biscuits in the UK. You'll also find that some keywords have more or less competition or search volume in different languages and regions. Another important factor is to place the language menus on the top right of your landing page, not hide it somewhere deep in your website where non-English speakers can't find them. If you translate your website and you don't have the language extensions on the top right of your landing page, people will not dig, they will not know that your translated text is somewhere in your website. Also, please do not use flags. Flags represent countries, not languages. For example, English language, American, British, or the Australian flag. The second example is Latin America. Spanish is the main language of this region. However, if you use the Spanish flag, pardon me, to represent the 16 different countries that speak Spanish, you will be alienating them all. Let's go to the major search engines in the world. Of course, Google leads the way, but is also banned in some countries. In China, Google is banned due to the country's Great Firewall, which is the strongest and most technological censorship wall put in place in modern times. North Korea. Google is unsurprisingly banned due to the country's isolation from the rest of the world. South Korea. Despite having the world's fastest internet speed, South Koreans do not use their high-speed internet to visit Google. Russia. Google is not banned in Russia, but the country has been trying to create its own search engine to rival Google. Google also restricts access to some of its business services like YouTube, Gmail, Blogger, and Maps in certain countries or regions, such as Crimea, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Sudan, Syria, and almost all Arab countries. Let's talk about language interpreting, which is different from translation, as translation is the written part and interpreting is the live speaker. Interpreters do the talking, converting speech from a source language into the target language. This is far more than speaking two languages fluently. The interpreter must also communicate the style, the tone of the speaker, while considering differences of culture, dialect, and the setting they're in. The listeners should hear the interpreted message as if it had been originally spoken in their language. Most interpreters work bidirectionally, meaning that an interpreter often works both to and from the target and source language. Interpreters not only understand the source language, but also communicate extremely well in the target language and are subject matter experts. They study the subject. Usually interpreters are provided conference materials or any material that is necessary to make this a successful event at least 3 to 5 days earlier, so they are very, very well prepared for the interpreting job ahead. So simultaneous interpreting requires the interpreter to listen and comprehend in one language while simultaneously providing an interpretation in a second language. Settings for simultaneous interpreting include court proceedings, international meetings, television news broadcasts, and press conferences. The sessions at the United Nations are most commonly recognized use of simultaneous interpreting. Consecutive interpreting requires the interpreter to hear several complete sentences in one language before the speaker stops to allow the interpreter to provide an interpretation in a second language. Settings for consecutive interpreting include small meetings, person-to-person communication, and question and answer sessions such as attorney-client interviews and physician-patient encounters. So we've been dealing a lot lately, and I'm sure you have used a chatbot, and it's becoming more and more recognized as a matter of finding out question and answers, asking questions about your services, about your products, and learning more about your company without actually having a real person behind the screen answering. So most or all AI chatbots are AI-powered virtual assistants capable of engaging with customers in a variety of languages. These chatbots can be integrated into platforms such as messaging apps or websites, offering both live interaction and automated assistance in numerous languages. The chatbot will help break down language barriers and provide assistance, information, or customer service to a diverse audience from different linguistic backgrounds. Creating a chatbot in different languages involves several core components. It starts with integrating advanced language processing technologies to handle all these various linguistic inputs. This process also requires a comprehensive database of languages, dialects, and algorithms capable of understanding contexts and nuances in different languages. The development of these chatbots demands a deep understanding of linguistics, cultural nuances, and technical proficiency in artificial intelligence and machine translation. You also have to ensure cultural sensitivity as one of the most crucial items, and the chatbot must be able to adapt to a regional dialect and modern slang. We have been reviewing chatbots for clients for a little while now, and a lot of times these chatbots need a lot more education and a lot more material to be able to answer clients' questions properly and with cultural sensitivity. So there a lot of tweaking still needs to go in a lot of these chatbots. Video, another way to promote your business in other countries. Less than 20% of the global population speaks English, either natively or as a second language, which means your content, if your content is only in English, you're missing out on a huge potential audience. Therefore, growing your market research, growing your market reach. Sorry, I just had a message pop up. Growing your market reach with video localization, you can expand your reach using content you've already produced, whether that's marketing content or product education. If you're starting to make your product or service available in new regions, this is a natural next step. Content should follow the product. You're at a competitive advantage if you're tapping into new audiences with translated content with videos. Your SEO will be majorly improved, and prospective clients will discover you much quicker. And for global employee training, it's very beneficial to have training videos in your employees' native languages. It always shows goodwill and raises employees' morale. So what is the overall process of translation? The client sends a document or a link to a large slew of documents or InDesign files or AutoCAD files. First of all, an analysis is done what it requires to finish this project for the client. All the industry specific or technical terms are identified. Local nuances are flagged for localization adjustments. Pre-translation preparation and initial translation, understanding and use of tools and solutions that speed up the translation process, like translation memory software. This translation memory software runs in the background and it adds all your language, all your text. And for large projects, if you have a huge volume of words, it has a pop-up screen and it tells you, hey, you've translated this before. Would you like to reuse this sentence or this paragraph? Therefore, speeding up the translation process and in the long run, saving costs for the client. Now, mind you, this does not translate. It's just a glossary building software that will help staying consistent. Then everything is proofread by another translator. Then is there file formatting or typesetting involved? And then one last round of quality insurance. What about the cost? Our regular advice is to go slow, step by step, and localize one piece after another. And especially for websites, make it country specific and watch your analytics. If your analytics tools start showing more and more traffic coming from certain markets, it is then worth exploring if you need to localize more content. The same goes for an increasing number of questions from internal customers. What about the cost for regular documents? Well, it all depends. It's not one size fits all. It's based on a series of factors, namely the following: the service type, translation, what all is involved, the turnaround time, is it a rush, the document, what kind of format is it in? Mind you, a translator can translate about 2,500 words a day, which does not include the proofreading by another translator. Spanish, of course, is more cost-effective than Swahili. Interpreting is by the hour or by the day, depending on the length and the subject matter. So, what are the advantages of human translators versus AI versus machine translation? It all depends how well the AI system is fed with the language that it's going into. And our advice is to please, if you want to work with AI, no problem. But have a human translator review everything, because we find oftentimes that a hybrid approach works best, AI and human translator. And absolutely, Google can provide instant result in many languages, but the results aren't always accurate. Furthermore, did you know that Google Translate is not HIPAA compliant? And even Google states that Google Translate is not reliable enough to be used in situations where people's rights are on the line. And Google says Google Translate can't replace human translators. The other thing is that anything you put into a free online translating, be it Google, be it anything else, it is up to Google. They can use it any way they wish. If you read the privacy clause in the Google under Google Translate, it'll state it right there that it is their material that they can use any which way they are able to. Okay, and here is one of Google's errors that happened at the 2018 Olympics in South Korea. The chefs of the Norway Olympics team needed to feed the Norwegian athletes and ordered 15,000 eggs when they meant to order 1,500. The chefs put in an order for them with a local supermarket using Google Translate. The reason they ended up with 15,000 eggs had to do with the Korean counting system, in which large numbers are based on units of 10,000 instead of thousands. Luckily, they were able to return the 13,500 eggs. As we wrap up today's webinar, let's remember translation and interpreting aren't just about words. They are bridges to mutual understanding, cultural appreciation, and yes, even better, ROI. So let's keep breaking down language barriers, one conversation at a time. Thank you, danke, grazie, merci, gracias for joining. And here's to a world where communication knows no bounds.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Suzanne. As I was listening, I was just thinking almost every one of these slides could be a webinar by itself. So, and actually, speaking of that, I know you have a newsletter because it's one of my favorite ones. So if somebody wanted to sign up, they would continue to learn more about this information. Should they just reach out to that contact info
Yes,
there?
please.
Or is there a place on the website to sign up for it?
Yes.
Okay.
AATranslation.com.
Okay. And as a reminder to everybody, we will be sending out the recording and the slides. And now would be a time to enter any questions that you have. I do have a couple of questions. And actually, one more just sort of plug is when, Suzanne, when you were talking about sort of planning out your language translation, sort of, I guess, creating a translation plan, so to speak. If that, those questions, if you could somehow provide those to us, we could include those with people just send out to people because those were excellent. I also wanted to mention that one of our other partners, the Small Business Development Centers, have an online program for export planning overall. And I believe that there are some translation portions of that. And so you could work that together with the information that Suzanne provides. So if you're a company that doesn't have an export plan already, let us know and we can make that connection for you. Let me look through some of my notes and see what would be a question I want to ask first. Can you talk more about that, that sort of background glossary translation process? I didn't quite understand how that fits. I think that's you're saying when a company engages your services to translate, is that like, how do you use that?
So yes, it's called translation memory software, TM. So you have your Word, let's say the Word document you're working in, and you turn on this software that runs in the background. And especially for large, for hundreds and hundreds of pages of manuals, legal contracts, things like that, where you have a lot of repetitions, it learns in the background. It memorizes all this text, saves it, and then it'll come back. If you're in like 10, 15 pages into the document, it recognizes something that was translated earlier on, and it has a little pop-up screen. Hey, can we reuse this translation that you've already done? Therefore, it speeds up the process while you're translating. It doesn't translate, it just builds a glossary. So for for companies with large volume, especially when they have, so a translation company translated a manual, let's say 5 years ago. 5 years later, they would like to update this manual, and this company still has that document from earlier, and they send a new document. So it compares what are the updates of this document, thus saving the client, a lot of money, and the translator can turn it around much quicker if they have this software running in the background and they have used it before. Just for updates, it saves clients quite a bit of money.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. And you do have, I don't believe you mentioned this, but your translators are native speakers around the world, correct?
Yeah,
You want to
yeah.
talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so all our here's my plug. We work on every continent except Antarctica because we haven't perfected the penguin language yet. So yeah, all our teams are global. They're in the countries that the text is being translated into. And all these teams we have worked with for at least 10, 15 years, some of them. So not even do they familiarize themselves with the client's documents and lingo. I mean, each company has their own internal lingo, and we learn all that. We learn their lingo, we learn how they would like everything translated, and these in-country translators know the language better. I do not translate anymore because into German, because I've lived here too long. So same thing, you want to have the translators in country so you get the best dialect.
So another question, thank you. Another question pertains to like packaging or that kind of translation. You were talking about how the text length is different, or the sentences can be longer. When somebody's trying to translate that kind of thing and they only have a certain amount of space, is that something you help with?
Yes. So we help them with the design. Most of these translations are done in InDesign already. So we receive the InDesign files, and then we talk with the client. Okay, so this is going into Spanish, for example. Can we make maybe the font a little bit smaller, to make it fit? Not too small so you can't read it, but if you look at some of these labels out there, they're super tiny. Sometimes you can barely read it. So we work with them, and sometimes not everything needs to be translated either. But for nutrition labels and pet food labels, pretty much everything goes on there. And those are usually pretty small for the food nutrition labels. And Arabic always poses an issue because Arabic is right to left. So we have a lot of clients that, we translate into Arabic too, and we tell them from the beginning, please let us do the layout. Oh no, we have an internal team. And then it always comes back. We can't do this because some of the fonts, you have to use different fonts too for Arabic. So sometimes they don't have them, or they try and it doesn't look, the language looks totally different in the end, because we always proofread everything. So everything that we translate and they do the layout, we always check it for consistency and accuracy. That's always part of the whole package. Please send it back. For websites, please let us test a website before you go up live, things like that. That's super important. It's not only the translation, but it's all the Q&A, quality assurance afterwards.
I honestly have to say I had no idea. I hadn't really thought through it because I have not, I don't have a business where I've translated anything, but it, just ticking through all of the different aspects to make something effective in another language certainly demonstrates the value that you provide compared to like using an AI translation or something. I mean, it just doesn't have the capabilities for that.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I guess you answered already, like if somebody is really on a budget, but they want to, start expanding, they want to make sure they're reaching their customers. I guess you really addressed that, right? Just start small, start with
Always start
one
small.
primary
Yeah. Yeah.
area and go from there.
Yeah. And especially for websites, as I mentioned, we get this a lot. How much does it cost to translate or localize our complete website? And we start looking at it and we're like, you don't really need to localize everything. Let's start step by step. And then, analytics will tell you whether people will open it and read it or not. It's not really, that expensive to
Mhm.
start globally if you have the time, unless you want to go full blown. But even then, there are some ways to save cost.
Well, and then hopefully the ROI still comes out ahead, right? Because you're going to be attracting that other
Exactly.
audience that you didn't capture before.
I
So,
mean, like I said, Shopify 13% increase when they localized their website.
oh,
Yeah.
that would be one more thing, and we're getting a little short on time, but um, how would you compare, like, if somebody uses like a Shopify versus something that you do? Do you have recommendations on when to use that and when not to? Because I know those are plugins, but they also, I think, take a cut. I don't know if I'm going too far into e-commerce, a little outside of your scope.
Well, you know, I really don't know that answer to
Okay.
that, how e-commerce gets a plug, we don't work with that. We help set it up, but
Mhm.
we don't go any further than that.
Got it.
So
Yeah, because I guess when you were talking about the URL search
yeah,
process, that was,
yeah, yeah, you have to have if you want to go, like I said, to France or China or Canada, you should have a landing page with the country extension. That way, the search engines will find you much quicker.
yeah.
And yeah,
Okay. Well, great. That was certainly a huge amount of information, very interesting. And as I said, your newsletters, I always find them not only interesting, but kind of, I mean, educational, but also humorous. Some of the, mistakes that have happened and things like that. So I do encourage people to sign up for your website. Um, and
thank you.
then we have made reference to it already, but I wanted to let people know about a couple of upcoming events. We do have in August, we typically do some kind of an global update of some sort. This year, in August on the 27th, we are going to be doing another webinar focused on foreign exchange and interest rates and that kind of thing, trends and tips for minimizing financial risk globally. And that's going to be presented by Fifth Third Bank. That will be a webinar. And then, as we mentioned, Growing Global 2024, we're very excited about it. It's the largest internationally focused event in the region every year. It's going to be in person at the Ritz-Carlton in Clayton on Wednesday, September 25th from 11 to 1:30 p.m. And if you've never been there, the networking is just beyond belief. Last year, we sold out at 750 people. So this year, our topic is global talent, local impact, fueling regional economic growth. This is a huge issue and topic for many businesses, especially international businesses, and we are very excited about the lineup of speakers that we have. Sponsorship opportunities are currently available if you go to our website, which is worldtradecenter-stl.com, and you will see information there actually on both of those upcoming events. And just a reminder that World Trade Center members also receive 2 complimentary tickets. So if you wanted to check with me about joining the membership in time for the event, that would be great. And then there are sponsor levels that also include a membership. One more thing I wanted to mention, that we always look for your feedback on these webinars, and at the conclusion of the webinar, a survey will appear in your browser. We hope. We're trying this out for the first time. And then when we send the follow-up information, there will also be an opportunity there to submit your feedback. And I think that's it. Let's see. I see that Tim asked a question, and we have a couple minutes, so let me put that one out there. Suzanne, do you recommend any local websites to review for examples of companies doing it well?
Ours.
Yours, that's a good idea. That's a good example. Okay, well, that could be something we could send in the follow-up info too, because I would love to also include, as I say, that list of questions people can ask themselves as they're kind of doing their translation planning. And then also, let's see, there was something else. Anyway, I can talk to you offline about it. There was something else I thought would be helpful if there was some specific kind of written info on what you covered. But very, very informative. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate all the work you do for St. Louis and especially for helping us internationalize St. Louis and become recognized more and more around the world through all the different hats that you wear. And thank you,
Pleasure.
everybody, for attending today. We hope that you found this informative and helpful, and we hope to see you at another event in the near future. Thank you very much.